All right. Hopefully, I'm timing this better when I go live through Zoom. Good morning, Jared here. Now, I just got off just a little bit ago. I had an 8 a.m. Discovery session with a small business owner here locally in Minnesota. And I'm telling you right now, it was such a great conversation. And I just felt like what we went over this morning, I had to share with everyone. If you're a small business owner, you need to take time to listen to what I'm about to share with you right now, because I'm telling you right now, it is going to just, and I, this would be my hope anyways, open up your eyes to the opportunities. And so he reached out, he actually saw one of my videos I did here recently around business credit and finance, and we connected this morning. And when he first reached out, he just explained to me, hey, I need some help with my credit, my business credit. I'm getting denied for a line of credit. Let's connect. So we scheduled that. We had a conversation back and forth via text and ultimately got on the phone here this morning. So here's one thing that I want to share with everyone that I find to be extremely common in the small business world and what small business owners are facing every single day. And so in his situation, he's been in business now for 11 years and he was trying to get a line of credit. And so he actually got referred over to a VP within Chase Bank from a friend of his, and it sounded great. The guy actually came over to his office. They sat down, had a great meeting, which I think that part of it is fantastic. Helped him put together the application, so that's great customer service. Helped him put together financials. I mean, this gentleman did a great job of really putting together a nice application package. But here's what happened, and this happens very often. My client felt extremely confident after that meeting. In fact, the gentleman was telling him, like, look, everything looks good here. How much money are you looking for? He's saying, hey, I'm thinking between 150, 200,000. Yep, that all looks good. You have time in business. Everything looks great. I'm going to put this all together, get it submitted, only to find out last week that he was denied. So that time that he spent, my client spent to sit down with the VP, to go through the application, to feel like everything is being sorted. This is promising. This is going to work for me. This is great. I can't wait for it to go through. Then here towards the end of last week gets the denial. So here's what's going on. And I told my client, I was like, look, man, that is extremely common, because and the reason being is that if you think about it, at least in my experience and being in this business now for 15 years, it's very rare to find someone in the business finance world, especially at a traditional bank. I'm not knocking them, I'm just being honest, that fully understands the scope of underwriting to even be approved for the loan that they're submitting for. They're in the business of relationships and putting together applications. That's really what it comes down to. I'm not dogging them at all. I'm just telling you the truth and how it works. Their job is to create relationships, meet with people. The more the people they meet, the better. Get applications, see what they can do, see what type of services they can provide, see if they can have you open up a checking. I mean, they're going to constantly push any product they have available because they need to generate. That's their job, right? That's how it works. And so it's very rare to find someone that's going to be able to take the time to fully understand in advance the type of documents and what your credit needs to look like and all the different nuances that are involved in this type of application to even know if you have a high probability of getting approved. So what did I do? Well, we took our time this morning. I pulled a detailed 3 bureau report. Now, with what's great when working with me, it's a soft pull, it's a consumer report, there's no inquiry, but I get all the details. And I also get the FICO 8 score, which is commonly used for business finance. And what I'm looking for is one, obviously, I want to see where the score is at. That's a big one. But more importantly, we need to do an analysis, or I do, of what are the details within the credit report. That's huge. Are we showing any potential risk? Because the reality is, until you've built up enough business credit history, I'm talking about multiple trade lines, multiple accounts, length of credit history, you really need to build a robust business credit profile to begin to get approved for lending under business credit only. And in fact, there's still quite a few different types of lending products out there that will never base a decision off of business credit only. What business credit does is it ultimately enhances any application that you do moving forward to lower the overall perceived risk of what you're applying for to get access to better financing and terms. That's what it does. You save money, get cheaper money by doing this correctly. So personal credit is going to be always important, as well as building and establishing and maintaining a strong business credit score. So as I'm going through this, I'm identifying a few things. Actually, in my world, being FICO certified, relatively straightforward opportunities for us to maximize FICO 8 scores. We went over that here today. Based on where his credit profile is at, excuse me, I was able to then also go through a discovery session, understand his financials. Because here's another thing around the financials, and I actually did a video on this here just a couple weeks ago. One thing that they're going to look for when he brought up 150,000 and 200,000, my question to my client was, well, what are you using the funds for? Where did you get that number? And he didn't really know. He just said, well, I need to do some marketing. I need to cover some payroll sometimes. He didn't really have a firm answer. I'm going to go into that in a little bit, but I want to kind of piggyback on what I was talking about. So, like when it comes to the financial aspect of things, you have to understand that in the automated and also manual underwriting process, primarily it's always automated, at least the bulk of it. That's the world that we live in. They're going to be looking at a few key factors. We already talked about credits, credit score, credit profile. Is there anything that has perceived risk within the profile? Then when it comes to financials, typically, if you're applying for something that's $50,000 or more, they're going to require financials, okay? And so when it comes to financials like bank statements, in certain cases tax filing, what they're really looking for is a few things. One, they want to see if there's a or a trend of growth in revenue over time. That's a big one. That's going to lower overall perceived risk. And then when it comes to your revenue generation and your expenses, there needs to be a gap there. So when it comes to that gap, like let's say in this case we're looking at a line of credit, well, they're gonna underwrite this loan with the perception that you're gonna do what's called a full draw. You're gonna take all the money, and then what does that proposed payment look like? And do you show enough of a gap there to ultimately be able to afford that payment? That's what they're going to look at. There's so many different variables involved in this. On top of that, there's going to be some other things that are not even necessarily credit related. When it comes to time and business, do you have a brick and mortar location? Do you have an office? Do you not? Are you home-based business? Do you have a business line? Is it a cell phone? Do you have a website? I mean, there's a lot of different things that are looked at without you even realizing. So that's one key thing that I look at when working with clients is just making sure that we're hitting all the pieces in advance. You don't fully understand the power until you go through this experience. When you start to work with me and understand, like, hey, we're going to position you and your business in the best light possible, even before we apply, because I know what the lenders are going to be looking for. I know what the underwriting process looks like in detail. I know more than that bank rep knows. I know more. I can say that confidently. I know I do. So if I can work with you to position you with strength, then when we go to apply, you're coming in with a buying power. Okay, that's what I want for you. And then in addition to that, what I was talking about before, when it comes to use of funds, this is where our conversation started to go. Once I was able to identify what needs to happen, how to get in a position of approval and putting together that game plan, I then took time to better understand his use of funds. What are we going to be using these funds for? Because a lot of times what I found working with, I mean, at this point, just hundreds of business owners, I've actually had quite a few business owners come to me where they've already taken out financing, they've taken out credit. And a lot of times the type of money that they got access to had high interest rates, weekly, daily payments. I mean, just bad loans. I'm just being honest, bad loans. And that ended up causing them more hardship than it did, an opportunity of growth. And so for me, I'm always looking to empower my clients, if time allows, get in a position of traditional financing, monthly terms, better interest rates, things like that. But use of funds is actually critical in all this conversation. So things that I look at is, what are we going to be using this money for? Are you looking to acquire another building? Are you looking to acquire a piece of equipment? Are you looking to enhance your marketing? Are you looking to cover payroll so you have a little bit less stress throughout the month and you can stay honed in on what makes your business grow? I mean, there's so many different ways that you can use these funds, but we need to make sure that there is a plan, there's a strategic plan around this, and that you have the confidence that when you get access to this capital, you know how you're going to leverage it for growth. You're not making an emotional decision out of stress, like, oh my goodness, money's tight right now. I can't cover payroll. I need money like right now. It's in those moments when people stress out that they end up taking action on something that they feel in that moment is going to benefit them. And in the end, they look back and say, that actually hurt me far more than it helped me. And so that's why I like to sometimes just slow things down. Let's really take time to map this out. What's going on? What are we looking to do? Do we need to be more resilient in our business? What are the opportunities of growth? What does our sales process look like? What does our marketing look like? What does it look like for you and how you actually collect your fees? There's so many different variables involved in business in general. And I understand that what I'm talking about right now is separate than business credit building, business credit cards, access to capital and financing. The reason why I bring this up is, I'm a business owner myself. I've owned Credit Life now. Man, what are we looking at here? 10 years. And so it's important to understand that I've gone through all this myself as well. So a lot of what I'm explaining right now are the trials and tribulations that I have personally experienced in growing a business that I'm extending to everyone else so that way you can learn from my mistakes to hopefully avoid those mistakes through knowledge and expertise to then allow you to get to your goals faster. So use of funds is critical, and I really like to take my time with clients around this, especially the sales process, how you collect your revenue, what type of conversions are you looking at, when it comes to marketing and lead conversion, what do your CRM platforms look like? It's not necessarily something that I'm going to jump in and help you with directly. Do I have the expertise to do that? Have I helped clients with that? Yes, for a fee, but I'm very select on who I help that type of work with. But really, it's just an overall understanding of if we access capital, what is it going to do for your business? And do we have the confidence? There's always a risk. Being a business owner, there is always a risk, but we want to make sure we're taking a calculated risk. And if time allows, and if we can kind of pump the brakes sometimes, is to take a little bit more of an intentional focus on what we're trying to accomplish here, that's the key. That's the power. Because then when we have that plan in place, it becomes significantly easier on when, where, and how to leverage capital to allow that type of growth to happen in a controlled, stable manner. That's what I'm looking to do with my clients. And so when we're working together, when you reach out to me, just understand that our conversation is going to be more in depth than what you may have experienced, if you've ever reached out to a lender or a bank or a broker. For me, it's absolutely critical that if I'm working with you, I'm doing the right thing to empower you so you succeed. Just like I want to succeed, I want you to succeed. That's how I operate every single day. And so just understand that when we connect, we're going to go through this together. We're going to figure this out. And so just like I did with my client here this morning, he just enrolled with me. We're going to rock this out. In his situation, we identified some great opportunities where we could pump the brakes a little bit. He does have some wiggle room. We can begin to maximize FICO 8 scores. And in fact, instead of pursuing the line of credit, what we're going to be doing is we're actually going to open up 0% interest on business credit cards that range between 12 to 18 months that we can then leverage for marketing because he's looking to do some more marketing. And then in that case, we're creating a 0% delayed spend model that will allow him to have the opportunity to work on the marketing with a third party firm, understand the timeline it's going to take to execution, understand the timeline of what it's going to take to when we're going to start to receive leads or when he'll start to receive leads, and what his conversion process looks like and when he ultimately starts collecting money. So if you think about it, if we're leveraging a 0% introductory card to then create delayed spend around that type of investment, we're actually putting him in a better position than even a line of credit. Because with the line of credit, once you do that draw, you will be paying interest on it. That's not a bad thing. But in this case, we can be more strategic. So it just shows you there's so many different ways that we can go about this. So I really wanted to take my time here today and just say what's up to everyone. I'm super pumped up. Every single day I'm in the office, or in this case, I'm actually working from home. I'm dog sitting my business partner's dog, little Peanut, a little Pomeranian. But every day is exciting because we're solving problems. We're empowering small business owners to grow and to grow in the right way, to create less stress, more opportunity, more clarity in your direction, more drive. The last thing I'll leave you with, I did a post on this last night, and I spent time last night. I'm really trying to take take more time on off hours to continue to educate myself. And I came across this podcast with Alex Hormozy. He's promoting his new book. And it was a phenomenal podcast. I mean, 2 hours long, but it was well worth it. I mean, it was. The investment of time and what I got out of it was absolutely amazing. There's a few key points there that I want to bring up in what he brought up. One of them is this, and actually, it actually forced me to kind of look at our model here at Credit Life because I realized, like, wait a minute, am I doing it that way? So I want to bring up what he talked about. So when it comes to your ability to grow and scale as a business, the very first thing that you need to be looking at is your revenue model. And in an ideal situation, what you want to be able to create is that with every acquisition of a new client, the revenue that you collect within 30 days can be used to create two more clients. Now, I know that model and what I just said sounds so simple, but you really need to reverse engineer that. I'm actually doing this right now. That one client that you bring on and the revenue that you collect within 30 days, you want to make sure provides your company the ability to then get two more. Now, think about that when you start to look at this at scale. Especially in my situation with a team. You know, we're here to empower our clients, but ultimately we need to make sure that we're successful financially. We're in the financial world, so it's very important that we're always in tune with these type of concepts. And so if you look at the ability to grow and scale, when you operate in that way, your growth opportunity is endless at that point. Quite honestly, if you do it correctly, you may never even need to access much capital at all if you don't want to. You know, it just depends on what you're doing. You know, if you don't need brick and mortar or equipment, you may not need capital at all when you're operating in such a way that you have so much cash flow and you're constantly growing. I mean, that's amazing to me. So I really want you to kind of take some time. If you're a business owner, really look at that, you know, whether in real estate or, I mean, there's so many different businesses. I work with a ton of real estate investors in real estate, but I also work a lot with construction workers. I work a lot with people in e-commerce. I mean, all different types of businesses. And so I really believe that type of model, that type of thinking can really empower a lot of people. And also he talked about if you're in sales, you know, he had a breakdown of what it came to in our world today, what it actually takes. There's some four core principles of what it takes to ultimately generate more awareness and more opportunity to empower and help more people, ultimately bring on more clients. You know, so you have one to one, you have cold outreach, you have one to many, and then you have business partners or affiliates, right? And so I know that that sounds so simple, but when he's breaking that down, he talks about you need to hone in for yourself and how your model is going to be for your business. And so one shift that I've made, we've always been a one-to-one model, really since the start of Credit Life. And I will never take away the human element in what we do because that's extremely critical to me. I want people to know that we're real and we have expertise, we care, and we back up what we do through action. So I'm never going to get rid of that. But at least when it comes to a one to many model, in the past, you know, I did a lot of speaking, which I plan to do again here soon. But in the past, I was looking at speaking as a way to get in front of more people and more of a one to many opportunity of sales. And actually, my mindset around that has completely shifted. I would rather speak in a way to fully educate, empower people to take action. If they ultimately want to talk to me, they can. That's how I'm going to operate there. However, when it comes to the volume requirement in a one to many model around content creation may actually blow your mind. So if you're someone out there, and I know social media marketing, video marketing, even what I'm doing right now, you know, a lot of people know that these are things that you should be doing. Well, the reality is, and this blew my mind, if you're really looking to massively grow your awareness, the volume requirement in social media marketing is probably at least 30 times more than you may think. So an example that he brought up was when he first started Alex, when he was looking at his content creation, which he's really blown up in the YouTube space. I really love his content. You know, he actually sat down with someone that specialized in that, that had a lot of success in that. And he went to him and said, "Hey man, Leon, look at my content here. Let me know what I'm doing wrong." This is before he even blew up. And they did a review. And the gentleman told me, he said, "Look, what you're posting, what you're doing is great, but you're doing a video like every other day." And then he showed him what he's doing. And he brought up every single social media platform: Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, X, Instagram, TikTok. And across those platforms, this gentleman had 70 pieces of content going out on a daily basis. Think about that. 70 versus one video every other day. So I'm not bringing this up in a way to like overwhelm you thinking, "Oh my goodness, like I have to do 70 pieces of content across all this." No. What I'm challenging you with, and I'm actually looking at this for myself, is how can you begin to leverage your expertise, your knowledge, and then repurpose that content in a way, in a written format, in a video format, in a reel or short format? How can you begin to get more strategic when you're taking time to educate and empower others to then break that down, to then ultimately reuse, to then hit that higher volume benchmark across all platforms? I mean, really think about that. I mean, this would benefit any business. If you work with other people, whether it be B2B or B2C, this will benefit you, because the reality is online presence done correctly is the best way to garner more attention, more awareness, more branding, more marketing, to ultimately have more conversations and ultimately be able to help more people. And so that's a big takeaway that I had last night that I wanted to share with everyone. I just really think that anyone that's watching this, if you're motivated to do better in life, if you're motivated to empower more people, if you're motivated to help other people, if you're motivated to really hold a strong name in your community of people that they know that person's great, I trust that person, they back up what they say, they're great to be around, they're energetic, they inspire me to do better. If you're like that, I like to feel like I'm like that. And that's really what I strive to be every single day, for myself, for my family, for my future. You know, you really should look at this content marketing strategy and how you can create more awareness. And then with that, what I brought up before is really take your time to better understand what you're doing for your business, the capital and credit requirements, how the use of funds. Like, you can see now how all this begins to come together. This plan can really start coming together when you begin to look at it from above and get more strategic in your moves. And in my situation, knowing I have a team, this excites me more than ever because I'm not by myself. And so that's another thing to consider. If you have a team, I mean, you can really, when done properly, you could leverage other people's abilities, other people's expertise, and really maximize the opportunity even further. And so excited for the day. It's hump day, my favorite day. And I'm looking forward to just keep rocking this out. You guys have a great one. Hopefully this message resonated with you. If you ever have questions, reach out to me. You can message me, you can comment. I'd love more comments. I know I'm just really starting to ramp up again, but would love to hear some feedback. Any content that you'd like to learn from me, let me know. And yeah, have a great day. Talk to you soon.